Water, the most common substance on Earth. It is with us every moment of our lives. Like the human body, the Earth maintains a constant amount of water. If the quantity of water is reduced, or at least one of its amazing features is changed, then life on Earth will vanish. Just like you, Earth is a living, dynamic being. It has veins and arteries with water flowing through it, which are connected to one large, thriving heart, the ocean. It evaporates water and returns it back to the hydrologic cycle as rain, falling down on mountaintops, which again form veins and arteries that return to the ocean. It is this constant water circulation that keeps the planet alive. We are just like the surface of the Earth, at least 70% water. We also have a heart and 60,000 miles of veins and arteries. And like our planet, it is water that gives us life, replenishing our cells in a continuous water cycle.
The system of the universe exists as a single perfect organism. All of its parts, including us and our Earth, are inseparably bound together by huge streams of information. And on our planet, water plays the key role in how the information is exchanged. In effect, it is the medium through which all nature is governed. Our Earth is a giant container of water in which all forms of life arose, and every living thing is itself essentially a container of water. Depending on age, a human being is made up of 70 to 90% water. An adult drinks approximately 2.5 liters of water each day in order to sustain his normal life functions. Another 1.5 liters is absorbed through the skin during bathing or showering. Science has not yet been able to answer the question of why water is the only substance on the planet that can exist in 3 states: liquid, solid, and gaseous. Why does water have the highest surface tension of all liquids? Why is it the most powerful solvent on Earth? And how, in defiance of the Earth's gravity, is water able to rise through the trunks of gigantic trees against tens of atmospheres of pressure? In a seed, for example, it reaches 400 atmospheres at the moment of germination. That's why a plant shoot can break through asphalt with ease. The water, of course, remains water, but its structure, like a nervous system, reacts to any irritation.
The water molecule is a dipole. One end is charged more negatively and the other more positively. This is a well-known phenomenon. A molecule acting through its negatively charged end can attract another molecule by its positively charged end, and then another molecule. This is how the structure of water is formed. It is fluid and short-lived. Somehow, among the changing forms, one can see stable formations. These are called clusters. It is within these structures that water retains information it has captured. Any substance coming into contact with water leaves a trace in the water. Had our ancestors guessed this when they used silver vessels to turn ordinary water into healing water? In the 1960s, in a closed laboratory in Germany, something inexplicable occurred. A laboratory assistant dropped a vacuum-sealed ampule containing virulent poison into a vessel with distilled water. Trying to conceal her blunder, she just left it in the water. The ampule was discovered only 3 days later. Since it was sealed, it did not pose any special hazard, and the matter was closed. Later, the water was given to laboratory mice. And they died. Immediately, the water was thoroughly tested. Chemically, it proved to be impeccably clean. It meant that the water without direct contact with the poison somehow adopted its properties. In other words, it received negative information from the poison.
A fantastic hypothesis was put forward, a hypothesis that could explain water's unpredictable behavior. Water has memory. Experiments done in many countries around the world have shown that water receives and makes an imprint of any outside influence, remembering everything that occurs in the space that surrounds it.
It makes no difference where the water is located. If you transport water to outer space, it remains sensitive to what it encounters. NASA scientists discovered this when they released water in a low-gravity environment.
If pure water is hard to make, it's hard to get, and it's kind of reactive, it's very polar liquid, and so it tends to dissolve things and grab things, and they become what we call surface active. If you take a drop of oil or something like that, it won't do that. Ethanol or alcohol won't do that, but water is a highly contaminable surface. You fill up a water balloon, there was some junk on the mandrel that they used to make the balloon in the first place. That's on the inside of the balloon. That's instantly in the liquid. Now when you deploy that junk that's in the liquid then goes to the surface, and so it changes the surface property somewhat.
Water drops oscillate in reaction to the burst balloon membrane. It takes 45 minutes for it to stabilize and form a perfect sphere. Further experiments at low gravity allowed astronauts to study a sphere of water 75 millimeters in diameter with an air bubble inside. When water droplets were injected into the bubble, they created collision dynamics in action. Most of the collisions were created in a rebound or elastic fashion, bouncing off each other and the wall. But on occasion, an internal bubble would oscillate, and the momentum would carry it across the interface in a mass transfer.
The structure of water means how its molecules are organized. We can see how water molecules join together into groups. Scientists came up with the idea that these clusters work as memory cells of a certain sort, in which water records the whole history of its relationship with the world, as if on magnetic tape.
If you consider a cluster as a group of specific molecules, then it can survive only a short amount of time. But if you consider it as a structure whereby molecules can leave and other molecules come in, the cluster can last effectively for a very long time.
The stability of the cluster structures confirmed the hypothesis that water is capable of recording and storing information.
It may be the single most malleable computer, it's like a computer memory. It's the memory of information. We must know how it is arranged. It is like the alphabet. If I give you the alphabet, you don't know a word, you don't know a letter, you don't know a sentence. So the molecular structure is the alphabet of water. And you must make a sentence out of water, and you can change a sentence.
This leads us to the idea that information is either made up of water or exists in it.
Like sculptures that have not yet been created are present in a piece of clay, so the images of all future living organisms were present in the water. Water merely brought to life a pre-existing conception, but for any process to begin requires an impulse. Wise men of ancient times believed that for life to arise was a primordial divine spark. This spark imprinted in the water the sequence of future development. The entire course of evolution provides evidence of this.
There are such animals, for example, jellyfish. Jellyfishes are 99.9% of water. And we, as biologists, study the left 0.1% of this jellyfish in order to understand how this bulk water, why it is alive. Probably this water is alive, and this 0.1% simply allows it to be alive. We ourselves, when we were newborns or when we were fetuses, we were 95 or even more % of water. We were already alive.
I think that scientists should look more closely at how water interacts with their molecules. At a molecular level, it creates the structure of DNA. We wouldn't have the DNA helix without water. It creates the structure of proteins, so our bodies wouldn't work without the water.
Water is a universal computer that reveals any biological program, and thus, water is the only thing that can change it. Water has a life cycle of its own, flowing from melting glaciers down steep mountain slopes. During the journey down, the crystal streams are filled with the energy of the sun. They absorb information about the properties of the soil, about the composition of minerals and rocks. The impressions of such water are full of fresh air. These impacts change water structurally. Meanwhile, for a human being, water remains the same, without taste, without color, and without odor. Yet it's impossible to find identical water on Earth. Water is like a clean sheet of paper, which can be changed by a tiny brushstroke. The great artist Leonardo da Vinci wrote, "Water assumes a special character, as many times as there are different places where it flows." On Okinawa Island in Japan, people live incredibly long lives. They suffer very few cases of common human diseases, such as diabetes, arteriosclerosis, and cancer. One of the explanations is that they drink water vitalized by the coral their island rests on. These natural bodies are not only stunningly beautiful, but also extremely long-lived. The most ancient of them are more than 600 million years old. The coral imprints the water with information about longevity, which is then passed over to the water medium of the human body, tuning it for long life. 75% of the human body consists of water. If the body loses 2% of its liquid content, we become thirsty. If it loses 10%, we start hallucinating. If the body loses over 12% of water, we die. In the language of the Pemon Indian tribe in Venezuela, Roraima is translated as the mother of all waters. A group of Russian biophysicists set out for this destination in January 2005 to collect a unique sample of water, which scientists say has never been in direct contact with human beings. Such water exists in only one place on Earth, in Venezuela. According to one hypothesis, a continent called Gondwana existed in the southern hemisphere during the Paleozoic era. Powerful tectonic processes occurring in the Earth's crust 3.5 million years ago split it into several parts. As a result of these changes, some segments of the continent sank, while those resting on granite substrates remained at their previous level. Elevated plateaus were formed, which the Indians called tepuis. meaning pillars, Roraima is the largest of them.
It's a really remote place, very hard to get to. 3 days of travel through the savanna and then the jungles. Then you climb an 800-meter wall. It takes a certain amount of enthusiasm. Therefore, we can say that the water we have there is in a unique, virgin state.
There is always a large cloud over Roraima. As evening approaches, a light haze appears. When the moon comes out from behind the mountains, the mist begins to glow with an even blue light. And in that light, it is visible how fine droplets of moisture are hanging in the still air. The slightest breath of a breeze, and this watery dust forms into drops. This is the origin of the rain which rushes down in countless waterfalls.
So today is January 30th, water collection number 16. Then we shall pack it all up in foil, and in this form this water will hold its energy for several days with the air of these places. Then we'll arrive in St. Petersburg and will calmly carry out our laboratory analysis several thousand miles away, and only then will we be able to draw any conclusions.
Professor Korotkov's laboratory has developed an instrument that can determine the energetics of water. It works on the basis of the Kirlian effect. Everything that enters a strong electromagnetic field begins to emit light. The greater energy the object possesses, the brighter it shines. The water from Venezuela was compared with ordinary drinking water.
We can say that this water is not double, not triple, but it is 40,000 times more active. So these are really two fundamentally different substances. And water of this type, this water, which immediately activates the body, it activates the whole system. That's why there, where the Indians, despite the deprivation in which they live very long lives and are very happy. They absolutely do not want civilization to come to them.
This water also had an effect on the science team, even though their visit to the area lasted less than a week. Dr. Korotkov used a special instrument to measure the energy level of each person at the base of Roraima, and then 2 days later after each member reached the summit.
And what we found was really astonishing. We found that for all members of the group, at the top of Roraima, the energy field tremendously increased. And they felt it. So now you see these are images of energy field of a person at the sea level, and you see it's a lot of breaks, it's very jagged, and it's a typical reflection of condition. And this is the same person, but at the top of Roraima, and you see dramatic difference.
What is water? In water researcher Victor Schauberger's view, it is a living substance, which can die if it is treated poorly. Schauberger believed that water is born in the forest. It falls as rain, and it filters down through the rocks, gathering minerals and trace elements until arriving at the surface as a spring. At this point, water is full of mother substances ready to provide life. Its vitality depends on how it flows, or how it is forced to flow.
Our systems for moving and processing water are designed from the point of view that water is merely a fluid, without life or energy. So we don't care how it's treated.
We make water flow along straight channels, through cylindrical devices and other shapes that are never found in nature. We ignore water's natural path. Spiral patterns and arrangements are all around us in the forms of galaxies, cyclones, and tornadoes. These spirals are everywhere in nature, which has chosen these formations because they represent the law of constant change. If we want to create a system for moving water which allows it to remain vital and alive, we must provide the opportunity for water to breathe. Victor Schauberger's research on water revitalization inspired the development of flow forms, which are a series of formed basins that allow water to flow into figure-8 vortical movements, causing the water to pulsate rhythmically. The type of movement in flow forms simulates a mountain stream, energizing, restructuring, and oxygenating water. Flow forms mimic nature's flowing movement, plus simulate the heart rhythms, helping to refresh and reharmonize water. Vortical treatments of harmonic frequencies is an effective way to eliminate undesirable information remaining in water after removal of physical pollutants.
Water makes a long, difficult journey before arriving in our homes. It used to be common knowledge that a settlement could only occur where there was a natural source of water. Today, whether or not there is water in a place is of no importance, because we transport water for thousands of miles using high pressure. In nature, rivers and streams always flow along a smoothly curving course. But any water system has multiple right-angle turns. The natural structure of the water breaks down more and more with each such turn. Water from a water supply system which flows into our homes through pipes has various forms, crystals of various forms. But they are all deformed. That is, they may look like this. It can look like this or have these crystals and many other arrangements, but you won't see any symmetry or beauty.
We've been forming crystals for more than a dozen years. From our tests, we came to the conclusion that living water forms more hexagonal crystals, and less vibrant or dead water doesn't form hexagonal shapes. What concerns me is that water from any big city tends not to form beautiful crystals. When water travels in the city, it collects negative information from the people and pollution. Also, the more chlorine in the water, the less crystals can form. We also have pipes that make lots of turns. Imagine if you were water. You might want to die with all this unnatural and forced movement.
Water that flows in a floor-paneled heating system is devitalized and rotten. It sucks energy out of the people, plants, and animals living in that house. It actually steals the energy. It is well known that the water supply in many large cities is a closed-loop system. After undergoing aggressive chemical purification and passing through powerful filters, the water in these systems is returned to our homes, still remembering the chemicals and the violence it was subjected to.
There are over 100,000 man-made chemicals, including pharmaceuticals, birth control pills, toiletries, and household cleaners. When the liver removes these toxins from our body, they get flushed down the toilet, where they then go into the sewer, where many pass intact through our sewage treatment facilities and filters, and are recycled back into our municipal water system, for us to consume once again.
Even stronger, however, is the informational pollution that the water accumulates as it flows down miles of long pipes through thousands and thousands of houses and apartments. We pollute water spiritually, and this happens on a huge scale. Why? The water adopts all of the hatred, all of the malice, the stress. The water is almost dead by the time it enters our body. We subjected water to super weak magnetic field impulses. These fields are tens of thousands of times weaker than the Earth's natural magnetic field. Fish were introduced into water that was treated in this way, and the fish soon produced an unusual hatch of small fry. They differed radically from the other fish to which they were related, though they looked as much alike as twins. Gray stripes appear on the belly of all these males at once, along with colored spots which had not been observed previously. These are called phenotype changes. And it is of fundamental importance that these changes appear not in just some of the treated fish, but in all of them at the same time. The experiment resulted in changes not only on the outward appearance of the fish, but also in their behavior. They began to react to outside stimuli in the same way. It was as if the whole school had acquired a collective mind.
I've studied water crystals for 15 years. What I would really like people to know through my research or work is that water has memory.
Dr. Masaru Emoto exposes water to a variety of outside stimuli at his research laboratory in Japan. His researchers capture 50 samples of each water specimen, which are frozen, and after 3 hours examined in the lab at a temperature of -5 degrees centigrade. Only a few will reveal their beautiful structure. As the temperature rises under the microscope, the crystal starts to grow and expand. The researcher captures its image on camera before it returns to the liquid state. This beautiful geometrical wonder expands in 6 directions from each corner of its hexagonal base. A lateral view reveals a protrusion that appears at the tip of the cone. This is because ice crystals do not develop two-dimensionally, but rather three-dimensionally from the center to the edges. Water from natural sources, unlike tap water, provides a wide range of crystalline formations. This allows us to peek into the life and health of water. Living water, in good condition, produces beautiful hexagonal crystals, as we see in these pictures. If water gets sick or dies, what we see changes dramatically. We can see how water reacts to a computer, a television set, to hard rock, a microwave oven, a cell phone.
The basic principle in the universe is vibration, and vibration can be created by the principle of resonance. Without resonance, vibration doesn't exist. And this is the truth in the universe. In the quantum world, very small units of things resonate with each other, and that's how they affirm themselves. So we are able to reconfirm the existence of things by seeing them through this resonance theory.
Max Planck once said that everything is a wave. In other words, when we write a word on a sheet of paper and apply it to water, we can see that the water crystal changes its form. It means a transformation of the water itself under the influence of the frequencies that we emit with this word.
The first word Dr. Emoto's research team exposed water to was arigato, Japanese for thank you. Next, we see what happened when they used negative words, such as you fool. Words of beauty create beautiful crystals. Gentle words manifest delicate crystals. In crystal form, water reflects the power of intention behind our words.
In 1995, Dr. Masaru Emoto was the first one to record musical impressions on water. In Dr. Emoto's laboratory, they presented water with different types of music, after which they froze the water and then under the microscope could clearly see the crystals that the water had formed.
Here, we see crystallized distilled water before music is introduced. And now the transformation when it is exposed to Mozart. This is how water responded to Beethoven. And this is water's response to something more contemporary, Sting's Fragile. Other well-known examples of water's hexagonal geometry are snowflakes. Each one is created by the conditions in which it grows. No two are exactly the same, despite the billions of snowflakes that fall each year. The life of a snowflake begins high in the atmosphere. The lone droplet freezes into a tiny ice bead, which then expands into a hexagonal base. Each of its 6 corners starts to grow a branch, creating a very complex pattern. Physicists have calculated that the number of possible ways to grow a snowflake far exceeds the total number of all atoms in the universe. Therefore, you can be pretty sure that any snowflake you see will be unique, like no other that has ever fallen to Earth. This is a water droplet,
If we expose water to various sound frequencies using a technology called a tonoscope, we can observe various patterns emerging in its structure.
As we increase the frequency at certain key thresholds, the entire pattern morphs into a new resonant pattern, which is a more complex expression of the base frequencies. This happens repeatedly as the frequency increases. We can observe familiar geometrical patterns. Here we see a perfect cube, a tetrahedron, a star tetrahedron, the octahedron. All of these forms of sacred geometry were created simply by achieving the resonant frequency to match the form.
Water and human beings and plants respond the same way to resonant energy that your cell phone does when it picks up the call. Human beings and water can respond to particular frequencies and energies applied that way, and you can build up tremendous energy and have tremendous effects. We grow crystals using resonant frequencies. Salt crystals, like the same kind of salt flowing through your bloodstream right now in water. We grow those crystals using resonant frequencies 2,500 times faster and bigger.
Water perceives every change in thought or mood. The brightest of these vibrational currents is created by love. The power of this emotion is reflected in the word itself.
Our mind is related to our central nervous system. And when we have some emotions, when we have some thoughts, they directly influence not our only nervous system, but the whole body. First of all through blood, then through vegetative system. So we, with our thoughts, with our emotions, we totally change condition of the whole body.
Visionary and artist Leonardo da Vinci came to the same conclusion. Human emotions are water, he wrote in his notes, and it is the form taken by these flows within the body that determine the human character.
Every seed, every embryo, begins its life exclusively in water. Amniotic fluid plays a role in the embryo's development and preservation.
The amniotic fluid of a pregnant woman is clustered water. Under the microscope, it looks like clearly formed groups of molecules. You get the impression that the water is trying to protect the life inside, directing all the forces of the mother's body to its protection and development. It was discovered that the cells of a newborn also contain such water. When rapidly frozen and seen under 20,000-fold magnification, it proves to be a crystal of incredible beauty.
Water is the fundamental element of life and is the telephone to the universe. And the way we feel, the way we act, the way we process our emotions is going to have an impact on the water inside our body and the world as a whole.
Dr. Emoto conducted another groundbreaking experiment. He placed rice in 3 glass beakers and covered it with water, and then every day for a month he said thank you to one beaker, you're an idiot to the second, and the third one he completely ignored. After 1 month, the rice that had been thanked began to ferment, giving off a strong, pleasant aroma. The rice in the second beaker turned black, and the rice that was ignored began to rot. Dr. Emoto feels that this experiment provides an important lesson.
The worst rice samples is the one that was ignored. The same can be said in our daily lives when dealing with children. Ignoring children is the worst thing we can do. Even if we have to scold them occasionally, communication is very important. We should always converse with them and encourage them. Ignoring them causes the greatest harm.
In this experiment, Dr. Emoto's researchers used a glass of Tokyo tap water, which seems to be unable to form crystals, and performed a test. Participants placed the glass in the center of their circle and sent gratitude to the water. Studying the water under the microscope, they started to see a crystal formation. Increased magnification showed the symmetry of the crystal, revealing how the tap water was transformed by the gratitude sent by the group. The crystal continued to grow, expressing the energies received. The tap water from Tokyo finally produced a beautiful crystal.
It was interesting to see children so completely astonished after they witnessed the difference in Tokyo tap water, before and after they sent the prayer. Their mothers were kind of skeptical before this experiment. But afterwards, they said, "We really have to believe it."
Scientists in the field of electrophoton imaging were conducting experiments measuring the energy of water here in the United States. To establish a baseline, a drop of water from a test glass was suspended above electrodes, where it was photographed using a fiber optic camera. The research team then took the same glass of water and performed an experiment in the power of intention. Participants focused on the water, sending positive thoughts and a healing chant. This sample, exposed to positive thoughts, was then tested in the exact same manner as the baseline sample. These measurements allowed scientists to study the photon emissions or energy level of each water sample. When the baseline drop was compared to the one imprinted with positive intentions, the difference was remarkable. The imprinted sample clearly had more photon emission and an increase in stability. Next, researchers exposed water to a traditional instrument known for its meditative qualities. Indigenous Australians have performed ceremonies with the didgeridoo for centuries, using a circular breathing technique.
The water showed a significant increase in energy level, as evidenced by the computer data and the resulting images.
It's clear that water is one of the most sensitive indicators of any fields that we have surrounding us.
Professor Korotkov's laboratory has conducted numerous experiments on the effect of human emotions on water. A group of people were asked to project onto a flask of water in front of them various positive emotions like love, tenderness, and concern. Then the flask was replaced with another one, and the people were asked to project emotions of a different type: fear, aggression, and hatred. After this, measurements were taken on the samples. The water exhibited changes that were clearly in one direction or another.
Love tremendously increases energy of water and harmony of water, while aggression, anger, decreases and totally reduce harmony from water.
This is water exposed to compassion, and this to anger. Everything we feel, hear, or see is a combination of light, sound, electromagnetic, and many other waves. Every life form, be it a germ, an insect, animal, or human being, perceives them differently. They perceive them in their own strictly defined range. Only water is able to absorb the entire range of frequencies that exist in nature and become either living or dead under their influence.
The average person consumes 16,000 gallons of water in a lifetime. That is a vast stream of chemical and structural information that is passed through our bodies. When we bathe or shower, we also receive 10 times the acceptable concentration of chlorine.
Chlorine in the water supply displaces oxygen. When chlorine burns off bacteria, it actually removes the fire of life from water.
Water burning is oxidation by oxygen of water. What is the product of this burning? Again, water and oxygen. I couldn't think of any other substance which, after burning, stays itself. It's only water. Because any burning is combining oxygen with fuel. Burning of water is combining oxygen with water. The product of this burning, again, water and oxygen.
Burning is a special property of living water, distinguishing it from dead water. Burning is the ability to eliminate harmful matter with its own power. Scientists have studied numerous samples of municipal water and did not find this natural burning phenomenon in any of them.
Once we tested water in a big bottle labeled by producers as the best water in the world. They added some minerals, but this water had absolutely no life. Glass, those are silicon. This is natural element of the earth. And water interacts with this element in our nature. Plus, the wall of a glass, it's smooth. So water being nearby this wall, it becomes more harmonized. So water can be kept in glass bottle, in principle, an infinite time. That is absolutely different. This is plastic. So this is chemicals. And chemicals, they penetrate water slowly. Plus, the wall, it's not smooth. So water being nearby plastic surface becomes more and more chaotic.
Most likely, people do not sense any particular difference between naturally pure and artificially purified water. But any animal will always choose water from a spring, because this water is loaded with natural energies. When scientists studied this high mountain environment and places where water is known for its healing properties, like Lourdes in France, they made an important discovery. They found that the pH level of these waters was highly ionized and very alkaline. While studying water, researchers exposed ordinary water to magnetically charged plates, creating a simple method of ionization, separating water into two streams, one alkaline and one acidic. The water from the alkaline stream significantly improves hydration because it is easier for the body to absorb. Water from tap or bottled sources is usually clustered in groups of 11 to 16 water molecules. During ionization, the water molecules are reduced to only 5 to 8 molecules per cluster. The percentage of oxygen increases significantly, which can be almost double the amount of tap or bottled water, allowing the body to maintain a proper pH balance.
Our lifespan is directly proportional to the amount of antioxidants we have in our body. And water is an important carrier of antioxidants. If you drink water that has large quantities of hydrogen, along with the right surface tension and right mineral content, then it will slow down the aging process. It will keep our mitochondria from dying, which provide us with the energy of life. And so we can expect to live longer. Essentially, it is said that we should live to be about 120 years old. and we often die long before that. So no one really dies of natural causes if they die younger than that. They die of dehydration.
What is acidic pH? What is acid? Acid is devoid of electrons, free electrons. What is alkali? Alkali is full of electrons. So our body should be slightly alkaline. What it means? It means that our body should contain enough electrons, or hydrogen atoms, if you like, which will combine with oxygen. If we are acidic, then oxygen flows in, flows out, unused. If you don't have fuel, oxygen is useless.
pH is a very important factor in overall health. To stay in balance, the body has to maintain its pH level because we're continuously generating acid wastes. When we eat, nutrients are transported to our cells and then burnt with oxygen, resulting in waste products that are almost always acidic. In a healthy body, our blood would pick up these wastes and carry them through the liver, kidneys, colon, or skin before removal. But worry, poor sleep and food choices, and environmental challenges limit our body's ability to remove acidic waste quickly enough. So the body compensates and transforms acidic waste to solid waste, storing the solid waste in less dangerous areas like arteries and especially fat tissues. The doctor is drawing blood from a patient's finger. Using a special microscope, we shall be able to see the condition of her body from this drop.
These are red blood cells, and they've lost their electrical charge, so they're all stuck together in a formation called a rouleau. Here's a huge symplast. Symplasts are associated with heart disease and many other conditions that could be coming in the future.
The doctor asks the patient to drink a small amount of structured water. After 12 minutes, the doctor again draws blood from the patient and studies it.
So you can see that the cells then become buoyant, they become slippery, and they have their electrical charge, so they repel each other. That allows them to carry oxygen, and it means that we're changing the pH of the blood. I think that's utterly amazing, that just drinking water could do that.
One way to counteract overacidity is by drinking alkaline water. We can measure the beneficial effects clinically with a new technology called polyinterference photography. This machine analyzes the body using light analysis technology. The subject is exposed to controlled, full-spectrum light. This study volunteer had been drinking mostly soda pop on a regular basis. The doctor notes that the participant suffers severe congestion in the areas around the liver, pancreas, and spleen. A bright pink spot also appears where the participant reports having regular severe migraine headaches. The volunteer is asked to drink only alkaline water for 5 days and then return for a follow-up exam. The red areas where congestion was recorded are now a clearer blue, indicating that the blockages are shrinking in size. The pink spot marking the point of headaches is gone, and the volunteer confirms that he hasn't suffered migraines since the drinking of the alkaline water. The research team examined the same participant using electrophoton imaging. This technology, based on the Kirlian effect, takes an image from each finger using a high-voltage electrical field and reads its photon or light emission. Each finger corresponds to specific regions of the body. The participant's first scan shows several gaps in his energy field, representing specific organs. Once again, the weak points indicate the pancreas and liver. After 5 days of drinking alkaline water, these gaps are reduced. The case study's image is brighter and more consistent, representing improved health, including the areas of the pancreas and liver. Even more conclusive proof can be seen using live blood cell analysis. This is a blood sample taken before the participant began the water experiment. The volunteer drank a gallon of alkaline water that day, and another blood sample is taken 24 hours later. We can see how just drinking alkaline water improved the cellular environment of his blood. The participant continued drinking good water for 2 months.
During that interval, he lost a total of 20 pounds and gained leaner muscle mass.
One theory of how to increase hydration of cells is to remove the dissolved solids from the water using distillation or deionization. This may allow the water molecules to more easily enter the cells. In an experiment conducted in the Netherlands, 2 beakers of deionized water are placed next to each other. A highly electrical potential difference is run through the beakers. Amazingly, the water creates a bridge between the 2 beakers. This bridge can reach up to 25 millimeters in length. When scientists recorded the water formation with a thermographic camera, they found the hottest part to be in the smallest diameter of the bridge and observed a transfer of heat and material between the beakers.
You think, when you look at it, there must be a very simple explanation to that, and it must be predictable and it must be easy to calculate, but it is not.
One thing is certain. This experiment cannot be repeated with tap or bottled water. Only the deionized water with very low dissolved solids can create this phenomenon.
The interaction of water and electricity is so basic, and it's everywhere around us. If you look at the clouds or the thunderstorm, it's water and electricity that one might think that scientists understand this completely. People don't realize that this substance, which is most common, has 63 anomalies. For water, every physical property, every basic property is an anomaly. Boiling point, freezing point, conductivity, surface tension, all anomalies. So the question is, to which extent can this problem be solved within the current scientific framework? I think it is another anomaly because it was not predicted and it cannot be calculated yet.
It is now believed there might be a 4th phase of water that we previously ignored.
We found something odd at interfaces. When you have a so-called water-loving or hydrophilic interface with water, in other words, when the water is butting up against that surface, that hydrophilic surface, it takes on a new set of properties. It's like a liquid crystal. And these properties they're not like the liquid and not like the solid. They're somewhere in between. If there's a 4th phase of water, I think this is it. If we had a plant sitting here, everybody can understand that the light is coming in, hitting the plant, and this energy from light, from the environment, is then changed, transduced into other kinds of energy that the plant uses. And the water does the same thing. Water is a recipient of energy. Your cells are filled with these little mini batteries.
Water from a single container was divided into 2 portions. One part was subjected to an outside influence that changed the structure and properties of that water. The water in the second flask acquired the same structure and the same properties after a certain period of time. Even if the 2 portions of water were a significant distance removed from each other. The Russian philosopher and scientist Alexander Chizhevsky, as early as the 1930s, described one astounding phenomenon. Observing a colony of bacteria, he noted that from time to time, these quiet microorganisms were engaged in unusual activity. Chizhevsky established that single-cell organisms became agitated in line with the advent of solar flares. While the sunlight still has a full 8 minutes to reach the Earth, the bacteria already know about the upcoming change. Detecting changes in the universe, water immediately changes its properties both on Earth and within the bodies of living creatures. This happens instantly. In the world's religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, it is the practice to recite a prayer before taking food or to consecrate the food during major religious holidays. Why did something that science is only now trying to understand seem obvious to our ancestors?
January the 18th. It is the eve of the Orthodox Feast of the Epiphany. 2 flasks are filled with ordinary tap water, in the morning, one of them is set inside the church, near the vessel over which the sacrament of sanctification is to be performed. Every year on January 19th, the faithful and even non-believers hurry into churches to pick up some of the baptismal water. It is believed to possess extraordinary properties. In order to confirm or refute this, the 2 flasks were taken to the laboratory for study immediately after the service. Here, the water was frozen in a cryogenic chamber and photographed under the microscope. The crystals of the tap water looked like a chaotic, diffused spot. While the water that had been in the church had the rectilinear symmetrical form of a 6-pointed star.
There was a fabulous experiment done at McGill University in Canada a few years back in which the goal was to see if water that had been prayed over and blessed would stimulate the growth of young seedlings more than plants that were watered with water that had not been blessed through prayer. Sure enough, the plants that received the water that had been prayed over and blessed had a more vigorous growth rate. Over and over, we see around the world where water seems to play a major role in healing.
We know that water is a recorder of frequency. And we also know from a great deal of evidence that thoughts create a frequency, and that water is a recorder of those frequencies. People are mostly water. Food is mostly water. Anything alive is mostly water. So if all of these things are picking up and embedding our thoughts, what is it we are thinking?
From all this research, I can give you very simple advice. If you go to lunch or dinner, please never ever sit with people who are in aggressive mood, in bad mood. They can totally spoil your food, and it will have very negative effect on your health.
How a person handles water. If he approaches the water with good thoughts or blesses it and says thank you to it, the quality of the water will improve, and the water will have a positive effect on a person and his body.
If you go to Bible, if you go to Rig Veda, or if you go to other sources of the origins, it turns out a very interesting thing: water was not created. If you just read the first verses of Genesis, there is no a single word about the creation of water. And all other religions talk about water as non-created. And here is the major mystery, to which science will never give the answer.
No matter the faith, a person must be clean to stand before the Creator. Water is an intermediary that connects humans with their source. The Jews have ablutions and mikvahs. The Muslims wash before ritual prayers. In Christianity, water is the foundation for baptism. There have been many wars based on religious grounds in human history, but sincere prayers from any major religion can have a positive effect on water.
From my experience, any positive information being given to water, such as mantras or words from holy books, no matter the religious faith, or beautiful crystals.
The Christian prayer. The Buddhist prayer. The Muslim prayer. By the summer of 1991, Israel had had no rain for 2 years. The water in the country's only freshwater lake, Lake Kinneret, had fallen 15 centimeters below the critical level. Then, 10,000 Israelis gathered at the Wailing Wall to pray for rain. On the third day, rain came down on the country in torrents. Many people explain this fact as simple coincidence.
If you had to point at anything in the universe that connects all things, the only substance you could find would be space. Space is everywhere, and water is an expression of that space. Any changes in the space will change the water. All life emerges from water because water is the medium from which space communicates with all living things. You find that you have hurricanes and typhoons, right? Hurricanes in the North Hemisphere and typhoons in the South Hemisphere. And you look at the way the weather patterns move on our planet, they go from the poles to the equator and back to the poles. They don't cross over. There's this double torus behavior of how the water and the electric fields and the magnetic field of our planet is behaving. So water is an expression of the structure of space-time.
The quantum vacuum is something able to oscillate. In this way, all the existing objects in nature are in the same position as the metronomes. They settle on an oscillating platform, which is the quantum vacuum. And through the quantum vacuum, they are able to tune together their oscillation. And this says why liquid water becomes a very good tool for dialoguing, for having a dialogue with external signal coming from elsewhere.
In the 13th century, an Italian mathematician known as Fibonacci, while observing various natural phenomena, discovered the golden ratio, an infinite sequence of numbers, every one of which was the sum of the two preceding numbers. Dividing any of the smaller numbers of the sequence by the neighboring greater number, we shall always get approximately 0.618. Creating his paintings, Leonardo da Vinci used a special principle of structural perfection. He called it the golden section, where the ratio of the greater part of the section to its smaller part and the ratio of the whole section to its greater part was equal to 0.618. Long before that, in the 6th century BC, Pythagoras, the philosopher and mathematician of ancient Greece, discovered this ratio in geometry. Years before that, we can find that ancient Egyptians made reference to the same thing. They called it the divine essence. Does this mean that Pythagoras, Fibonacci, and Leonardo da Vinci, as well as many other men of genius, had knowledge of special laws of harmony, which form the basis of all things perfect in this world? Quite recently, scientists put forward a new hypothesis, stating that the laws of the universe are written in water. The golden ratio, or the divine essence, was found in a molecule of meltwater. In regular water, the angle between hydrogen atoms varies from 104 to 107 degrees. In meltwater, this angle is 108 degrees, and the ratio of the length of hydrogen ties 0.618. This is a special state of water. In melting from its frozen state, water deletes all information from its memory, retaining only one program, the program for life. Everything in nature's perfection has been created in accordance with this program. The arrangement of leaves on a branch, the petals on a flower, or the thread of a spider's web. The intricate form of a snail's shell, the DNA molecule, the universe. It transpires that who created this world transmitted the program of life to every living creature through water. The phenomenon of structural memory enables water to take an impression of everything that happens around it, and to connect all living systems together. And each one of us is a link in an endless chain of this transfer of information. But in addition, each of us is also a source of information. Every one of our actions, a thought, an emotion, an uttered word, separates from us and becomes part of the overall informational environment. Informational dirt is poisoning the water, accumulating layer by layer in its memory. If that process was to continue endlessly, the water would lose its ability to support life. But it is endowed with a self-cleansing capacity. This occurs at the moment of phase transition, when it evaporates and then condenses and falls as rain, or when it melts from its frozen state, shaking off the informational grime. Water always preserves its secret, that is, the program for life.
All the information about life is contained in water. If we destroy this information, we shall destroy ourselves.
Dr. Emoto's numerous experiments aimed at finding the word that structures water most beautifully have shown that it is not just one word, but a combination of two. Love and gratitude.
You are the river, you are the ocean. Just like the raindrops that fall from above and return to the earth down below. You are the sea, everything water is you. When there is love, you burn with life. When all the stars that come out with the moon after dark, you reflect that light. You are the tide. Everything water is you. And we all fall down. Yeah, we all fall down. Yeah, we all fall down like rain. Think something different. Try something you thought you could never ever do. Move clouds as the universe calls for and simply lies waiting for you. Time to make rain. Everything water is you. Time to make waves. Everything water is you. Waist deep in water, remembering who I am. I feel the current and recognize where I stand. And we all fall down. Yeah, we all fall down. Yeah, we all fall down like rain. Love, come to me, and all others. Love, come through me, and we are.